Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here. Hope everybody's doing very well indeed out there. Today I want to check out what I think is the ultimate live streaming and teaching tool for any guitar player, musician or band out there. This is the Boss Gigcaster 8, and for me it's an absolutely awesome addition to my workflow here in the studio for live streaming, recording, social media videos and teaching. This is essentially a very fully featured and extremely cool mixer basically for live streaming and for recording. You've got 8 channels along the middle here with individual faders, and then you've got a master fader on the right hand side. On the top you've got your inputs. Now the Gigcaster 8 has got 4 Neutrik style combi jacks on there, so you can use XLRs or standard 1/4 inch jacks, and then you've got a pair of outputs on there as well, which is what I'm using for monitoring here. 4 individual stereo headphone mixes as well. USB-C for connecting to either an iPhone or an Android device that's class compliant, or a Mac or a PC, whatever you want to connect to basically. And there's very good use cases for all of those that kind of are unique to this particular device. Got a foot switch on there as well for doing all sorts of different things. You can switch effects. There's tons of effects on there. You can trigger sound effects. We'll get into that shortly. Obviously your power. Then along the bottom here, you've got a bunch of pads. Now these pads on the Gigcaster 8 can be used for triggering sound effects, so we can do stuff like this. Very nice. You can make those whatever sound effect you like. There's a whole bunch built in. Or they can be used for changing effects patches on the fly. So if you press the effects button here, now the LEDs change color. This is channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. You can see they're color coded to match the colors on here, and they will change presets up and down. You can actually assign them to do various different functions depending on what you want to do, but that's really, really useful as well. The reason that's super useful is because every single channel, the 4 channels here, and the USB channel, and the mobile channel, or the auxiliary input channel I should say, so that's a physical mini jack input, and the Bluetooth on here and the pads all have individual per channel built-in effects processors. So channel 1, for example, specialized for guitar, although you can actually run anything into it, has the same technology guitar effects processor wise that's built into the latest Boss flagship units. So it's not using COSM, it's using the AIRD technology from say the GX100 or the GT core range, to give you fantastic sounding and fantastic feeling effects in there. But as I say, every single channel has its own unique effects processor with a whole bunch of effects, including EQs, reverbs, delays, modulations, and you can assign them individually. So that is fantastic. You don't need any external effects with this unit. Everything is built in. And in a second, I'll explain why that's got me so excited for using this for live streaming and for teaching. And for recording as well. So really, really easy to manipulate. Every single channel has a mute button and a solo button as well. And you've got your 4 independent headphone mix levels on there. So it's a really, really easy to use box once you get used to it. And the touchscreen as well has a bunch of ways of interacting with the unit to dial in whatever you want with the the setup that you're using. So its primary purpose is as a levels device. So you can see the meters. By the way, that is me plugged directly into the Gigcaster 8 using the inbuilt amp simulation, and its sound fantastic. I've got nothing else here. I'm just plugged direct into input 1. There is a guitar input on the bottom. I'm not using that because obviously I can't get to it, but it doesn't matter. I'm just using the input on the top. It doubles up as a guitar input if I wanted it to. Of course, you could plug mics in there or whatever with full phantom power across all 4 channels. So you can see I've got the levels on here, but again, I can interact with the touchscreen in many different ways to achieve, whatever I want in terms of effects or dialing in the unit for my particular needs. It's a very, very responsive touchscreen. If I want to, say for instance, go into the settings here and adjust my guitar sound, you've got the same setup here that you might have recognized from, say, the GX100, where I can just scroll across and edit my signal path, scroll up and down to change various different settings. Let's say I go to my amp. Everything is here. It's very responsive. I've got guitar player fingers here, so they tend to not work with touchscreens very well. This is working absolutely fantastically. So very, very simple to use, very intuitive once you've got used to the layout of the device itself. You might also notice there's a record and a marker button on here. That's what this flag is. The GC8 or the Gigcaster 8 has an SD card input on there. So I've got a micro SD on there at the top, 512 gigabytes. That gives me days worth of recordings, and I can hit record and do a very high quality 32-bit floating point recording, multi-track recording of all of the different inputs on here, take that and then mix it down in a DAW afterwards. So it's really, really, really useful in that regard. And again, we'll get into why I think that's so useful for teaching and for live streaming later on. Again, very, very simple to use in terms of interacting with each channel. Just tap on the channel number here. It could be the USB. I've got my Mac plugged in here down below, and I've got all the inputs from the Mac in there as well. And again, each channel, I can tap on any of the effects on here. There's an enhancer with things like compression, de-essing, ducking. So that's really useful. If I've got a vocal mic plugged into channel 2 and I want to duck my playing while I'm talking, if I'm teaching, I can do that. Really, really useful. The device will actually run in 2 different modes. You can run in 2-track stereo mode, which is what I'm using here and recording direct into my audio interface just for the sake of the video, or you can run in multi-track mode if you want to use it as an audio interface with your DAW. So it's very, very fully featured. Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, well, it's a mixer, right? That's great. There's loads of mixers on the market. Why is this more useful than any other mixer? Well, for me, when I first saw this device, the thing that really excited me about it was the fact that I don't need any other hardware to do really high quality live streams, really high quality masterclasses for students on, say, Zoom, for example, or really importantly, and this is something that's becoming more and more important these days, to record really high quality social media videos. And again, this is the only device I need other than my phone or my iPad. Whatever I'm recording the videos onto. I don't need this crazy multicam setup with, all sorts of multi-effects units in the background, amp simulations or amplifiers, mic'd up, all that kind of stuff. I just need a guitar, the Gigcaster 8, and then my phone, say an iPhone in this case, and or an iPad or whatever I'm recording the video onto. Because that's what we do on social media. We just have the phone in front of us and we hit record and we want really good sound quality. Well, previously, if I was going to do that, say I was going to do a live stream or a lesson on Zoom, or I was going to, record a video for Instagram, I'd have to set up my cameras. I'd have to set up the audio separately. I'd have to plug into one of these kind of amps in the background, or the Axifx or the Boss GX 100, whatever I was using. And then I'd record the audio separately. I then have to sync everything up. I then have to put it on Dropbox. I then have to take that Dropbox file and download it onto my phone. I then have to upload that to Instagram and hope that all of that process works. And even thinking about that is making me just feel anxious about all that work just for a simple 30-second Instagram video or TikTok video or whatever, Facebook video. Same with a live stream. If I was wanting to live stream, there's so much that I have to set up. With this, all I need to do, let's say I was using my iPhone, take the USB-C out, plug it into the camera connection kit, so that's the USB to Lightning conversion cable, plug that into my iPhone, and then plug my guitar into input 1 or into the guitar input on the bottom here, choose my sound, set my mix up, and then all my backing tracks, anything that I'm using, could be from, say, my Mac or my phone or my iPad, connected via Bluetooth or via the auxiliary in, or via, I was pointing at USB there, Bluetooth, or the USB connection here, and I'm good to go. So for instance, I can play a backing track on my iPhone via Bluetooth, record using the camera app on my iPad, which is plugged into this via USB, and then I've got amazing quality audio that I can mix in real time on the fly using physical faders, okay, not gaining up an audio interface or whatever, and at the same time record the output via SD card in case I want a backup or in case I want to do something even grander with it and mix it in a DAW afterwards. So that is super useful. So for example, at the moment, I've got this great tone. What I'm going to do is just go onto my phone here, and I've got a backing track. Now I've randomly picked this on YouTube, so hopefully there won't be any copyright strikes. I'm going to noodle over the top of it to stop it from happening. Really simple setup. In channel 1 here, I've selected this Brit Stack 57 and I've added some delay to it as a preset. It sounds fantastic. Really great sound, really nice delay, in stereo, sounds wonderful. Phone connected via Bluetooth, and I'm just going to hit play. Really simple. Now I can adjust the levels here using the Bluetooth fader or whatever connection I'm using, and in real time mix this whilst I'm teaching or whilst I'm recording my video for Instagram, for example. So. Then mix my guitar. It's so straightforward to get amazing quality sound. Now that I could have live streamed via Instagram using the app on my iPad or on my phone and had the same exact level of quality of audio, or I could have been using Zoom on my Mac, I could have been using Zoom on my iPad or on my phone, whatever, and I'm not compromising my audio quality, and all I'm doing is plugging straight into the Gigcaster 8, which for me is so unbelievably convenient. I'm not running external bits of hardware into this or into an audio interface. It's just all here, ready to go. And at any point, let's say I've got too much bass on the track. It's so easy just to go hit the Bluetooth button, come across to my EQ for this particular channel using the touchscreen, and then here I've got my full parametric EQ, with parametric mids on there, and I can just say, okay, I've got too much low end, let's drop out some of that low end. Very, very powerful indeed. And there's a whole bunch of stuff again per channel on here that I can utilize. I can change the gain per channel. I've got full effects processing going on here. So again, enhancer for the Bluetooth. So I could also come down to, let's say here, there's a mix minus button. So if you had a soloist on there on the backing track, you could remove that as well if you wanted to. You've got the ducking on there as well. So anytime I'm talking, it will duck down the track so that I can still talk while I'm teaching. Very, very convenient indeed. Again, a bunch of effects on here. So if I wanted to add in some, let's say, I don't know why you'd want to do this on a backing track, but just imagine the possibilities. If you wanted to add in some vibrato, so we'll switch it on. So many different possibilities essentially for all 8 channels on there. And then you've got your master fader for your output. So it's really, really useful in that regard. Now, in terms of, recording generally into your DAW, it's really powerful in that regard as well, because again, you can set this into multi-track mode and you've got all of the power of a 8-channel, audio interface that you can record, say, with Logic or with Cubase or with Studio One, whatever you want to do. And that mode, just to be really clear about this, is not class compliant. So you can't do that with, say, Logic on an iPad. But whenever you're plugged into a Mac or a PC, that multi-channel mode is going to work great for you to enable you to use this as a really high quality audio interface. And again, 32-bit floating point technology. So if you set your gain staging wrong and you're clipping, because it's 32-bit floating point, you've got so much headroom that if you then go into your DAW afterwards and you set your DAW to 32-bit floating point as well, pull those levels down, you'll get rid of all of that clipping because of that headroom that's in there as well. So it's a actual professional quality, high-end recording device, as well as for live streaming and for, using for social media videos as well. So for me, basically, I love this device because it is the ultimate kind of single solution live streaming and teaching device for me. I mean, to give you another example, if I was to combine it with the GAFC foot switch, so I've got one down here, this plug into the foot switch controller I was mentioning before. So the GAFC has got multiple buttons on. Well, the Gigcaster 8 is also MIDI compatible via USB. So if I was using, say, OBS, which is what most people use to do live streams these days, I could actually assign these to different cameras, for example. And via the Gigcaster 8, using MIDI via USB, each of these could be assigned to one of the 3 cameras I've got here. Let's say, for instance, I was teaching something that required very close-up shots of the left hand. Well, I'm a guitar player. I don't want to be faffing around with a keyboard. I want to use my feet to actually control everything. And the Gigcaster 8 also allows me to do that using a foot switch like the GAFC. So say camera 1 could be here, Camera 2 could be here. This could be my close-up left hand. And then, you know, I could control basically anything that's MIDI compatible within OBS or whatever software I'm using, and assign it to one of the foot switches. So that is incredibly powerful. So not only is this a very compact, very high quality sounding mixer, it's also, as I say, for me, the ultimate live streaming and teaching device because of the feature set that it's got, meaning I just need this device. Sounds amazing. It's got all the features I need and connectivity, all the connectivity I need for doing my teaching. But combined with, say, a foot switch like this, it enables me to, you know, have a really professional setup and a very flexible setup that's super portable and just sounds fantastic. So there is also available the Gigcaster 5, which is a smaller version of this with 5 channels as opposed to 8. There's no combi jacks on it, so it's the standard XLRs rather than the jack inputs. But of course, you do still have the guitar input on there as well for input 1 with all the same effects on board. You lose the SD card reader and recorder on there as well, and you don't get the pads. There's a couple of different things missing basically, but it's more affordable and it's smaller. So for anybody who just wants to, say, record Instagram videos or live stream your band with a phone, for example, it's an amazing setup because it will fit into a really small backpack. Although I should say that this, if this is all you're taking, this and a MacBook or this, a laptop, this, an iPad, this and a phone, it will fit in a very, very small, even the Gigcaster 8 will fit into a very small backpack and is incredibly portable and nicely well made as well. You know, all of this hard plastics on here as well. Really quick thing before we round up, a big difference between the Gigcaster 8 and the 5 is this talkback mic on here, which is actually a nice high quality stereo setup you can see on here. So it does work for talkback, you can assign it for that, but actually it's a really good mic for recording as well. So if you wanted to do that, let's say you were doing a podcast and there was just you, or you were sampling some nature sounds or whatever, you could do that very, very effectively with this. And you know, it's a great setup for that. Final thing I want to mention is just in terms of podcasting, since I just mentioned that, it's not only a great device for live streaming and for recording social media and for teaching, it's an amazing podcasting device as well, because you can record direct here and you've got the marker function on here. So say, for instance, you know how it goes with podcasting, you want to edit something out, you can make a marker on there. Somebody said something they shouldn't have done, or for instance, you really want to highlight something, the markers become really useful and you can go in and you can edit based on those markers afterwards, which is very, very useful indeed. Combine that with the pads on here, any of the sound effects that you want as well, assign your own sound effects, or you know, use the ones that are built in, of which there are hundreds. So an amazing device. This for me is going to completely transform my live streaming and teaching setup, especially because I'm just going to have this in front of me with the Mac and live stream with no other hardware required. So that's really, really useful. And again, it's very compact and very well built and sounds fantastic. So for me, this is a bit of a game changer. That word gets used a lot, but it genuinely is in this case. Fantastic device here from the guys at Boss. All right, guys, if you follow the link down below, there'll be a link for the Gigcaster 8 and the 5, so you can check them both out, figure out which one is best for you. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, found it useful, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons as ever, and the bell notification. Everybody knows what to do these days. If you want to support me further in what I'm doing, check out the links below. You'll find all my lesson content on there, my app solo, all the usual stuff, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. My name's Tom Quayle, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.